Welcome back to Comics with Drew, and this is Drew, and today we're talking about Henry Cavill in talks to return as Superman, Deadline reports, among other things. This is going to be a short 10-minute video, hopefully, about Zack Snyder's DC Universe, which is a total catastrophe. I'm going to get out right up front the fact that I'm a DC Comics fan. I am partial to DC Comics over Marvel, and it's just the fact that I prefer the characters. So there's something about iconic Superman and something about iconic Batman and Wonder Woman and Aquaman. They're the prototypical pinnacle superhero characters. They're the greatest superhero characters. And that's not to say that Marvel is awful. It's just that I prefer DC, and some people may prefer Marvel, and that's perfectly fine. But what I can tell you for certain is that I do not prefer the DC universe to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is phenomenal and has some amazing films. The DC Cinematic Universe is a garbage fire, and it's a garbage fire because you have a bunch of idiots that are at Warner Brothers that don't seem to understand how things work story-wise and organically. They get Zack Snyder, who makes a competent Man of Steel film. So stop. First we're gonna talk really briefly about Man of Steel. I think Man of Steel is a good Superman film. It's not a great Superman film, but it is a competent Superman film. It's directed well. The only criticism I personally really have with Man of Steel is that it's washed out color-wise, and that's an artistic consideration, not so much a writing criticism or an acting criticism or a directing criticism. It just looks bad. And any Superman film should really be colorful because Superman is a colorful character. That's the point. Zack Snyder is obsessed with grimdark. Everything has to be grimdark. Everything has to be grim and everything has to be dark. Even Superman, who is the pinnacle of what human beings should aspire to be as far as virtue is concerned. But I digress. Man of Steel is a great movie, in my opinion. People have legitimate criticism for it. This video is not about the criticism or advocation of Man of Steel. Man of Steel was a competent film. Warner Brothers decided that, oh, look at what's going on with the Avengers film where they made $1 billion. You know, it looks like we have some superhero character thingy guys and jammies too, so let's go ahead and do the same thing. These people are imbeciles. They don't understand what they're talking about. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is fantastic and is successful because of the fact that they took a bunch of different movies and wove them together in the same story, in the same universe, and made them work in a way that they interacted properly and led to an organic team-up film and a series of films. You can't build a house by starting with the roof. You have to build the foundation. And Warner Brothers decided that they were going to build the house by starting not even with the roof. They were going to build the house by starting with wireless signals coming down from space. It's like they were going to do the entire thing backwards. And as soon as I saw Batman vs. Superman announced instead of a Man of Steel sequel, like Man of Steel 2, I knew that we were in for a world of hurt. Because Batman vs. Superman is a stupid idea for a film. Batman vs. Superman is an internet argument for geeks. It's not the basis for an actual film. Batman vs. Superman as a fight is drawn from Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns, and that's an organic storytelling aspect of that book where they're older and more bitter, and they've gone through all kinds of wars together. That is not a legitimate basis for a blockbuster superhero film. Warner Brothers saw the success of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and they decided they were going to take the Superman film that they had, and they were going to take Zack Snyder, since he did a passable Superman film, and they're going to put the entire DC universe on his shoulders. And it was going to be kicked off with a movie where your two heroes fight each other to the death. Can anybody see what's wrong with this picture? It's a stupid idea. It was a stupid thing to do. I can't. It's hard for me to understand how people in charge of spending so much money could get this so wrong. This is what happens when you try to make a movie to meet a financial report rather than trying to make a movie that's successful, which will make your financial report look great in the first place. Back to the point. Batman versus Superman is watchable, but it's a bad movie. They try to cram Batman fighting Superman from basically the Frank Miller story into a Superman versus Doomsday story, all into the same movie. There's no proper dramatic build-up. There's no proper story. It's just stupid. The whole thing is a disaster, and they saw it was a disaster. They saw it wasn't going to be successful, and then they decided to go ahead with Justice League anyway. And Justice League is a bad film. There are many people out there who consider Justice League to be a terrible film. These people are correct. Justice League is a terrible film. All right. There are people who are Zack Snyder fans who think Justice League is a bad film, not because of what Snyder was trying to do. They think it's a bad film because Joss Whedon came in to work on it halfway through production after Snyder was kind of voluntold to stop working on it. And if you watch Justice League and you watch the entire thing, you can pretty much tell what Joss Whedon was doing, and you can pretty much tell what Zack Snyder was doing. Zack Snyder was not making a good Justice League movie. So with the announcement last week with HBO Max, the new streaming service that AT&T owns, Warner Brothers was going to allow Zack Snyder $30 million to release the Zack Snyder Cut of Justice League, which he's been teasing about, but the fact of the matter is that, it's not going to make it better. People are like, well, look at Batman versus Superman. The director's cut is so much better. I'm like, no, the Batman versus Superman cut is longer with F-bombs and more violent. That doesn't make it better. Cursing and violence in a DC superhero film with Superman in it does not make a movie better. Okay? It just doesn't. I'm sorry, it doesn't. So, anyway, my point is, this all brings us back to Henry Cavill in talks to resume playing Superman. And what I hope, as a DC Comics fan and as a Superman fan, I like Henry Cavill as Superman. And what I would really like is to see them pretty much ignore everything that's not Wonder Woman and Aquaman and the original Man of Steel, and just kind of like do a soft reboot where you do a Man of Steel sequel and then you build this universe properly. We have an opportunity to do it. You have stars signed for Wonder Woman, you have stars signed for Aquaman, you've got Black Adam and Shazam 2, and you can build a legitimate DC cinematic universe. You don't need to have idiot films like Suicide Squad, films that don't seem to be really aimed at the typical superhero audience like Birds of Prey. You can have a coherent DC cinematic universe, and here's their opportunity to do it. So I'm glad Henry Cavill, who genuinely appears to be a good dude, I'm glad to see that he's in talks to play Superman again. And hopefully this will mark the beginning of a turning point to where we can actually see good quality DC cinematic universe films. So that's my rant about this, and thanks for watching. If you like listening to my rant, go ahead and like and subscribe. I definitely need to grow my subscribers. If you didn't like it, you can go watch Batman and Robin.